there, this one is called How to Read the Tarot. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Before I do, I'll just give you an understanding of what the tarot is about. The tarot is a map of the universe. I'm going to show you a few maps of the universe so you get an understanding how amazing the tarot is. And here's the first one. It's a coin, it's got heads and tails, and I can flick it in the air and I can turn it over, and I've got two possibilities I can get, heads or tails. That's a map of the universe, very, very simple, and as such, not terribly accurate or useful. Here's a more accurate map of the universe. When you roll the die or the dice, well, one die's got 6 possible combinations. If you were to roll 2, you could increase your combinations accordingly. This gives you more possibilities than the coin can give, and the example of someone that worked with this as a way of life is called the Dice Man. Look up the Dice Man and you can see that's what someone chose to do, is to live their life according to the roll of the dice. Somewhat more accurate than the coin. Considerably more accurate still is this one. This is called the Celtic Tree Oracle, also called the Ogham. And what we have here are 20 sticks from different trees. And the idea is that you would rummage in the bag and pull out one of the 20. And that would give you information based upon the actual one that you pulled out. In the case of birch, it would be quickening, new life, new beginnings. In the case of apple, it would be eternity and beauty. In the case of ash, it would be rebirth and peace. 20 possibilities. This is a considerably more accurate map than you can get from running the dice or from tossing a coin. There's something called the I Ching, which is a Chinese oracle. The Chinese oracle is the I Ching, and you cast this by either tossing special coins or yarrow stalks. And with this you've got 64 possibilities. Now you have a map with real richness, texture and substance. And this is what I want to say to you, as the neuro-linguistic programmer said some considerable time ago, the map is not the universe. However, if you want to find your way around, the map can be very useful. So let's look at the map we're going to look at today. And this is the tarot. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out how to use the tarot for divination purposes. And I'll explain what you can use the tarot for and what I don't recommend you use the tarot for. And I will tell you a little bit about my favourite deck. This is called the Crowley Thoth deck. This is actually the second most popular deck in the world, and it's an excellent deck for beginners, and it's also good for highly advanced practitioners because of the richness and the depth of the symbolism which is within these cards. Because the people that created the cards worked for years. Many of the modern decks that you find these days have only been worked on for a few months and don't have anything like the power and the substance this particular deck's got. They chose to work on this in a particularly difficult time in history, in the 20th century, as World War II. That was when they were working on this deck, and it didn't get published until after World War II was over in 1947. And it was co-created by two people, Lady Freda Harris and Aleister Crowley. They put their energies together to create this deck. And as you will see when I show you how to do a reading, it will become clear why I recommend this one. The world's most popular deck is the Rider-Waite. But I'm going to make a real distinction between the two. The Rider-Waite is a really good deck for if you are in tune with what I would call the old age or the old eon. If you're in tune with the new age or the new eon, then I recommend this particular Crowley Thoth deck. You can get it from A.G. Muller from the internet. A.G. Muller, that's a company that provides them worldwide. I think they come from Switzerland. So let's see how to do a tarot reading. When you first get your set of tarot cards from whichever sources you get them from, and by the way, there is some mythology I sometimes hear about, you're not supposed to buy your own tarot cards, you're supposed to get them given to you. Well, if you want to subscribe to such poppycock, you know, good luck to you, but really, let's just get real. You want to learn the tarot, you get yourself a set of tarot cards, and get them out of the packet and you'll discover that they are all in order. So the first thing you need to do is to give them a really thorough shuffle. Now, the thing about these cards, notice how large they are. There are 3 sizes you can get, but I prefer the largest size just because it's easier to look at the pictures, you can get into more detail. Because of the size of them, I suggest you shuffle them this way round. It's so much easier than trying to, well, I don't have particularly large hands, trying to grab them like that, it's almost impossible for you to reach. So I do it like this, and you just give them a good old shuffle. Really take your time, particularly the first time you're doing this. And what you're doing while you're shuffling these cards, you are instructing them that they are going to do a reading for you, because that's what it's all about. And when you've given the cards a good shuffle, the next thing you want to do is to spread them out. There are many ways to do this. This is my preferred way. I like to spread them out like this. To make like a half circle shape. And once I've got them spread out, I'm ready to start. And the wonderful thing about the tarot is you don't need to engage your brain. It doesn't matter at all what your rational mind thinks about what you're going to do. But of course, before you can actually draw any cards, you need to ask yourself why. As a tarot reader of some years' experience, I quickly discovered that most people that came and were willing to pay a substantial amount of money to have their tarot read didn't actually have any idea what they wanted to look at. And as this was my job at the time, I realised, we need an answer to this. So what I rapidly realised is what I need to do is to start with what we call a general reading. So I'm imagining this is your first experience of the tarot, or the first for a while. This is now you want to get into it. First thing I recommend you do is to do a general reading. So we're going to pick a card that is covering present influences, past influences and future trends. Past, present and future. 3-card reading. And you can be as fuddly-duddly as you like on this bit, or you can just get on with it. So if I'm doing a general reading for myself, which is what I'm now doing, I just go for it, right? Past, present, future. Don't bother to think about it, just get it done. Now I've got my 3 cards chosen, I'll create myself some space by removing the remainder of the deck. And if I'm doing a reading for someone else, I ask them what their astrology sign is. This gives me valuable information when it comes to looking at their reading, because I can get a sense of the influences which are going to be strong with them. Give me a bit of an idea about what's going on, so it's useful to know. So let's look at the first card. So here we are. So my card for the past influence is this one here. And so I've turned the first card over, and it's got the 10 at the top of the card, you can see there. There are cups on the card, and there's a keyword at the bottom. This is one of the reasons why I heartily recommend this particular deck, because many decks do not have a useful keyword at the bottom, and these do. So my past influences are the 10 of Cups, which is satiety. First thing you need to know is the elements, because the tarot works with the elements. So we have wands, swords, cups and discs in this particular one. Some tarot cards like to use fancy words like pentacles instead of discs, but it still means the same thing. Some like to call them coins. Cups are generally regarded to be cups, swords are regarded to be swords, wands are regarded to be wands, but funny how people like to use different words for those round things. So the 10 of Cups, the key word is satiety. So satiety is a situation where the person has experienced, because it's past influences me, where I have experienced so much emotion that I felt overwhelmed. That's what satiety means. It means when you're satiated with an excess of emotion. And that is exactly what was going on for me yesterday. A lot of emotional stuff going on for me. So completely correct. I can relate to that. The other thing that's particularly significant about this card is the arrangement of the cups, starting at the top there and working the way down. Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This actually is the representation of the Tree of Life, also known as the Kabbalah. It's Hebrew spirituality, and it's very, very useful in terms of studying the tarot. But let's just keep it simple. There we are. So that's my past influences. Emotional overwhelm through satiety. My present situation is this one here. Completely correct. Again, this is the Chariot. The Chariot means getting on with things, going for it, doing what it is that needs to be done. Movement, action. And so this enables me to distinguish something about the tarot straight away. the cards are divided into what you call the major and the minor arcana. And if you get a pack of ordinary playing cards out, you'll notice they have clubs, diamonds, hearts and spades, and they go from ace all the way up to king. All that's what we call minor arcana. There is no major arcana in your ordinary playing cards, but in the tarot, an extra 22 cards are added to the deck, which gives a massive increase to the amount of information that's possible. So the Chariot is the number 6, and you'll notice they're using Roman numerals. So they use Roman numerals for the major arcana, and they use ordinary numbers for the minor arcana. There's a little symbol down there, and that's a symbol of Cancer the Crab. So this tells me straight away that the Chariot is actually the key card for understanding the astrological sign Cancer the Crab. So that's my card for the present. Now I'll turn over my card for the future. And what I've got coming up for myself is a 7 of discs. And the key word for the bottom of the card there is failure. So there's something that I need to be aware of. It's what I will call a warning card. That there's something I might be putting my intentions into that is not actually going to work out the way I'd like it to. So that's a classic example of a straightforward 3-card reading. And this brings up an issue immediately, and I'm glad it brought it up straight away because you need to know. The reason why I like this deck is because, like the Rider-Waite deck, it doesn't mince words. This is not a fluffy, hippie, pretty deck. This is a card deck which is talking about real life. And as such, it will have plenty of cards which relate to the light side of life and other cards which relate to the dark side of life. So one of the most amusing questions you can ask a seasoned tarot reader is that a good card or is that a bad card? Because tarot readers don't really believe in good and bad cards, in as much as it's a false distinction the way we look at the world, or the universe as I prefer to say. So we have respect for what people would label as positive and negative cards. They've all got their use. In fact, a negative card can come up with very great value, and I'm actually going to show you shortly. So this is a very simple reading, a 3-card reading, and you can see how simple it was to do. So I'm going to do another one now. So still using the idea of a 3-card reading, this is the second thing I can do, and I call this a relationship reading. And you can use this to look at the relationship between you and anyone, or actually anything, come to that. So I'm going to work on a relationship reading for me and a friend of mine. Right, there we go. Now I'm going to make a really obvious but incredibly important point about doing the tarot, because when you're picking cards for yourself and other people, you need to know which is which. Okay, so that's my friend, that's for me, and that's the current relationship dynamic. Here's the card for my friend, and the card I get for this one is the Magus. So I see this person inhabiting the qualities of the magician. That's what the word Magus means. This is another major arcana card. It's a totally extraordinary card. The little symbol down there is a symbol for Mercury, because the Magus, the magician, is without doubt the ace communicator. It's a number 1 in terms of the major arcana. And this is a strange thing because the tarot doesn't begin with a number 1, it begins with a number 0. And should that card come up, I'll show you. So the Magus is the ability to be able to make use of all the resources and materials at hand, and to be able to be incredibly creative, communicative, productive, and a wonderful person to have in one's life. So that is real respect for my friend. That should have come up in that way. And the card I've got for myself is this one, and it's another major arcana card, and this got the symbol of the X at the top, which means a 10. And this is rather lovely because what we've got here, we've got the Magus, which is the embodiment of Mercury. Well, Fortune, symbol down there, is the embodiment of Jupiter. The colours of purple and gold and blue very much relate to fortune, wealth, plenty, those kind of things. Lovely card. So in this relationship, I offer this person fortune and they offer me magic. And we put the two of us together, And that's what we get. Bingo, there it is again, the Seven of Discs. Failure. So there's something about my relationship between me and that person that at the moment is not working out. And that's completely correct, because what's going on is we are not in communication as much as we'd like to be, because we've both got our own stuff going on. So I'm hoping that by now you can start to get to a bit of a flavour of the way these cards work. And here's a clue. If you want to become a really good tarot reader, you want to do the one thing that people generally advise you not to do. The best possible thing you can do is become utterly obsessive for a period of time. Really allow yourself to explore it thoroughly. You can go to the extremes of, okay, I've woken up today now, shall I go and do this or shall I go and do that? And this brings me up to another reading we can do. Now this one, like the 3-card reading, is a phenomenally useful reading. I'm only showing you what I consider to be the most useful forms of reading that there are. So the first one's a 3-card. Now this one is a 4-card reading, and it's called Advice and Outcome. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do an advice and outcome. And I'm deliberately going to choose something quite trivial and unimportant. Not anything that's going to be a big deal to me. And let's just see what comes up. Right. So I'm going to choose something. So this is it. I'm going to choose, do I go out tonight? Advice. Do I not go out tonight? Advice. So because it's a 4-card reading, this is the way it's going to work. I'm going to do first of all an advice and an outcome about going out somewhere tonight. Don't know where, it doesn't matter. Just not being at home tonight. Advice and outcome. And then I'm going to do an advice and outcome about staying in, about not going out. So one is about whatever it is, and the other is about not whatever it is. So here we are. So I'll have an advice, I'll have an outcome for going out tonight. I'm going to have an advice, I'm going to have an outcome about not going out tonight. So there they are. And this is the way that it works. When you're doing this advice outcome, you want to allow yourself to be guided by which is the first card you want to go for. So because my impulse is to look about maybe going out tonight, I will always begin with the advice card. And because that's what I'm going to look at, I'm going to begin with advice about going out tonight. And this is the one I've got. And it's so beautiful, this card should have come up. Because I actually wanted to talk about this, because the most significant advice and outcome reading I did was quite a long time before I was a tarot reader. My partner at that point in my life was big styled into the tarot, and I was not very interested. I was slightly interested, but not very interested. And it was winter time, and we lived in York, and we were contemplating the idea about going out for the day. We had a free day, we got the time, and we contemplated going out to Bradford. Not a very far journey, M62, but it was winter. And we got, as the outcome card for going out, we got ruin. And when she looked at that card, she said, don't really fancy it, got the ruin card, let's not bother. And I thought, well, whatever, I'm not really bothered, we can have a nice time staying in anyway. And later that evening, we did something we rarely do. We actually tuned into the TV and caught a little snippet of the news. At that point, I used to do that sometimes. And there it was, major news story of the day. Blizzards, M62 closed, and there was a body count of people who'd actually died, frozen to death in their cars. That was the moment that I realised there was something to this thing called the tarot. That's when I started to wake up and pay attention to it. So, that's really significant. That card should have come out. I think it's no accident, because I want that card to come out at some point in this session of showing you how they work. So my advice about going out tonight is ruin. So we're now moving into swords, the element of the air. So cups is the element of water, swords is the element of the air. And swords, air is all about thinking, just as much as cups is about feeling, air is about thinking. And what we have here is we have one sword right in the middle of the picture, and it's got a little heart on the pommel, which means it's really wanting to do its best, wanting to be in a place of love. And it's surrounded by these 9 other swords, and these 9 other swords have basically caused it to be broken into 3 pieces, which is why it's called the Ruin card. In terms of the symbology of the details on the card, all the minor arcana cards have a symbol at the top which relates to a planet, and a symbol at the bottom which relates to an astrological sign. So here we have the sun, little sun sign, and there we have the little sign of the twins. So this is the sun in Gemini, this particular card, and that's what it leads to. So that's what I've got. So my advice is ruin. Not good advice about going out tonight. Now I've got a choice. I can either go straight for the outcome, or I can have a look at the advice for staying in. I'm going to go for the advice for staying in. And this is an important point to stress with the tarot. It keeps on giving you more options to choose. And something that I find is very useful in life, particularly if you're very experienced, feeling stuck or confused, or sometimes it happens to us, depressed, then one of the things that can happen is we can lose our contact with our ability to choose. So the tarot does the opposite. It opens you up to choice, increased choice. So I'm choosing this one. I'm choosing to look at the advice about staying in tonight. And there we are, both swords. Both swords, really significant and interesting, isn't it? So advice about going out ruin, advice about staying in peace. There's a little symbol there, that's the moon. A little symbol down there, that's Libra. The moon in Libra, peace. And funnily enough, I'm going to be doing the film about the Tarot Wheel of the Year today, and that's what we're going to be looking at. This is one of the cards. The 2 swords are laid down, and there is this beautiful blue rose, which is open in the centre where the 2 swords intersect, and these are all the qualities of peace. So stay in and have a peaceful night, go out, have a ruinous night, is what I'm being shown so far. These are the advices. Now let's move on and let's look at the outcomes. And the outcome about going out tonight, God, isn't it interesting? The outcome I've got for going out tonight, bearing in mind this is a 4-card reading, and 3 of the 4 cards are all to do with the element of the air, the swords, the mind and the thoughts. Interference, the 8 of swords, that's what I've got there. And this is actually Jupiter in Gemini. Symbol for Jupiter, symbol for Gemini. The word interference clearly stated down there. So I'm doing an advice outcome reading for myself about going out tonight. And looking at that, I would not be that keen, to be quite honest with you. But let's look at the 4th card. Until all 4 cards come up, we don't really know. And this is the outcome for staying in. And absolutely no doubt about it. And I was hoping one of these cards would come up, because this gives me the opportunity to reveal to you all the kind of cards we've got. We've got major arcana cards, which you've seen already. You've seen the Magus, you've seen the Fortune, you've seen the Chariot. Now what we've got here are minor arcana cards, and we've been looking at the number cards up until now, when suddenly it's not a number card, we call this a court card. Now in this particular deck we have the following court cards. We have the Princess, the Prince, the Queen and the Knight. And this is the Knight of Discs. And the Knight of Discs, look at this dude, look what he's doing. He's off his horse, he's standing up, he's got his nunchuckers in his hands, the horse is starting to graze at the grass beneath. He's got his armour on, he's got his helmet on, but he's taken his visor off so you can see what's going on, and you can see the sun in the background. And this card literally means taking stock. So the advantage I have tonight by staying in is it gives me time for a little bit of self-reflection and taking stock of either the day or my life or some situation or issue. So that's a really useful advice outcome reading I've done for myself there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do you another advice outcome. And this is just to show you another way of working. Suppose you've got a person you're doing a reading for, and they really would like some tarot advice, but they don't want to say what the subject's about because they feel like they want to be a bit private about it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to call it option A and option B, so I know what these 2 options are, and let's see what comes out as a result. Option A, advice. Option A, outcome. Option B, advice. Option B, outcome. There we have them. So the advice about option A is this, and this one is called the Prince of Swords. So swords is to do with the element of air, which is to do with the mind, and the Prince of Swords represents that youthful, clear-minded ability to look at things with a clear mind, not allowing the emotions to get in the way. So that's a good advice. So in my situation with choice A, it means to say I need to be clear in my mind and not allow the emotions to take too strong an influence in this situation. And I'm going to deliberately choose it the other way around. So the outcome of following that through would be the Princess of Wands. Fascinating. I should be getting court cards coming up here for this advice and outcome. So if I was to follow my first option, I want to stay in my mind, not get too emotionally involved in the subject at hand. And the outcome is the Princess of Wands. Now if you look at that card, there we have a naked woman dancing with a tiger in the flames. So this literally represents adventure. Princesses represent the earth, princes represent the sun. So take it as an adventure is the outcome for that one. Now, the advice for the other option is another major arcana card. This is actually the last of the cards in the major arcana. It is number 21, XX1 at the top of the card there. The symbol down at the bottom here is the symbol Saturn. And the universe, well, this is really great because here we are, we've got two naked women. This naked woman is dancing with a snake in a field full of stars. And there are these four mythic beasts which are creating a sense of boundary. And so the advice for my second option is to accept whatever limitations I find that option is going to bring me. That's what it's telling me. And it's also telling me this, which is although there are limitations with this choice, Saturn is very much to do with structures, forms, limitations, agreements, that kind of thing, discipline. And yet, what that card is telling me is to do what the naked woman is doing, which is to thoroughly enjoy the space that she's got and to be completely free within whatever limitations they are. And the outcome of this particular one is the Sun. One of my absolute favourite cards in the deck, no doubt about it. And what we have is two small children playing in the grass. That's what's going on here. And they're looking very joyful, very much love going on. All the sun, the zodiac are actually shown around the periphery of the sun. And maybe you can see that. And then the sun itself, well, out of all the heavenly bodies out there in the cosmos, it's the one that affects us the most. So with that particular reading, advice outcome, it would depend very much on what the subjects were that I was thinking about. If this was something where I wanted a bit of a laugh and a good time, I'd go for option 1, definitely. Because adventure, clear thinking, that's a good one. However, if what I was looking at was something that had more of a serious quality to it, the more significance, more important to me, then the second option would definitely be the one I go for, because I would start off by working within limitations and I would have the benefit of the energy of the sun as an outcome, and I would say that's too good to pass up. Love that one. At this point, what will most likely come up for you is the question, okay, I want to progress, I want to proceed with this tarot, I want to find out more about it. What would you recommend in the way of books? And my answer will surprise you unless you know about my attitude towards shamanism, in which case it won't surprise you at all. Best way to learn tarot is don't have a book. If your deck comes with a book, bin it, ignore it, losing in a draw, but don't make use of it. The best way that you can get a full and thorough understanding of the tarot is as follows, and I will credit and honour and thank my son for this, because it was him who gave me this advice. He would say, take the card, look at the card, immerse yourself in the card, study the card, become one with the card. Just take time to look at all those details. This is a card I picked at random, and it's called the Queen of Cups. And the thing about the Queen of Cups is that when you look at this card very, very closely, you ask yourself, well, hang on, yeah, the Queen of Cups here, but where is she? She's suggested, but you don't really get a very clear image of her. And this gives you a very important clue about the Queen of Cups, because she is the magic mirror. She is the person who puts herself to one side to such an extent that she allows other people to see themselves when they are in contact with her. This is one of the quintessential qualities of the sign of Cancer, the crab. And so this is what this card means. Now, you don't get that from reading this from books. You get that from really taking your time to get to know the cards. So I thoroughly recommend that that's what you do. However, at some point you're going to say to yourself, yeah, this is all very well, Keith, but I really would like to get hold of a book. So my suggestion is, give yourself time without a book. Really do that. Play with the cards, and that's the other very important thing. Be playful with the cards and playful with your readings, particularly early on. You know, shall I have vegetarian sausages, or shall I have an egg for my breakfast? Make it things as simple as that to play around with, to get an idea of how the tarot works. And then as you get more familiar with it, then you ask it more serious things. But it's good to be light-hearted and playful, particularly at the beginning, and just feel easy with it. But when you get to the point, oh, I've studied the cards for some time, I really would like to get a reference book, then, yeah, I'll do that rare thing. I'm going to actually recommend a book. And it's not like any of the other books on the market, to be honest. It's by this really interesting couple called Heijo Banzhaf and Brigitte Theller. I apologise for my English pronunciation, it's almost certainly incorrect. Keywords for the Crowley Tarot. And what I love about this book is you get 2 pages for each card. You get a picture of the card, and you get a chart on the left-hand side, symbolism and meaning for all the different parts of the card that is shown. And then you get some general advice, professional advice, consciousness advice, partnership, what it encourages and what it warns against as an opportunity to do a card for the day. So if you really are a person that loves books, then this is the one I'd recommend for broadening and deepening your understanding of the tarot after you've already got so far ahead with it. So perhaps a surprising thing for you is that I've not given you any of the conventional spreads that people use. There's a thing called the Celtic Cross. You'll find it in virtually every single book that's ever been written about the tarot, and it involves laying out 10 cards. And my simple opinion for you on this one is, don't bother, because if you're actually laying out 10 cards, and this means this, and that means that, and this means this, and that means that, chances are you're going to find yourself feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and it's all a bit confusing. So I recommend you don't bother to do that. Keep it simple with smaller numbers of cards. Now I'll show you how you can do that, and I'm going to talk about a relationship, another relationship reading now. So this is a relationship reading I'm doing for someone who was and is very important in my life. This is the person concerned, that's me, and that's the current relationship dynamic. And yeah, I know you're thinking, yeah, he's already done this, but we're going to go further with it. Okay, so this is the person in my life, the Queen of Wands. Yeah, that's really appropriate. She's a pretty full-on person, actually. She might not particularly like being described as such, but believe me, she is pretty full-on. And the image of the fire pouring out of the person, that one kind of speaks for herself, doesn't it? Forceful female energy. Card we got for me. Oh, now that's interesting. I've got the Ruin card for myself. That's fascinating. So let's go into that again. Ruin, swords, element of air. the one sword being destroyed by the other swords around it. Quick translation, overthinking. So with me and this person in this relationship, the person clearly comes across as very forceful and fiery, and I come across as someone who overthinks. Totally correct. What we have is an abiding love for each other which transcends everything. And there it is, the Two of Cups, one of the most delightful cards in the deck, no question about it. It's so beautiful, that card, the Two of Cups. Astrologically, it's Mercury in Cancer. It just speaks for itself. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to broaden the reading out to show you what you can do, because I'm now going to draw the card which is relevant for the two of us when we first met and first got together, which is this one here. And then I'm going to pull out the card for, which is a future card. I'm going to do a future card. That can allow me to illustrate some points for you. Right, so the How We Got Together card comes up is this one here. It's a Nine of Wands and it's a Strength card. And indeed that's completely appropriate, because how we met was through healing work, and it began with her offering me healing work, which was then reciprocated by me offering her healing work. So Strength feels like really appropriate, no question about that. This is the Sun in Sagittarius, and this card literally represents strength through freedom. So that's a lovely card for past How We Got Together, and card for future situation. It's this one here. It's another major arcana card. It's the Eight of. It's the 8 in the. So it's the 8 in the major arcana, and it's the Adjustment card. So let's just hold that one up so you can have a proper look at that. It's a really quite an extraordinary card, this one, in my opinion. The Adjustment card. You've got a woman standing there, and she's acting as a point of balance or scales, and the scale on the left contains the alpha, the scale on the right contains the omega, so the beginning and the end. There are some very sharp points in this card. There's some very rounded shapes as well. So for me, this card, the old word for this card is justice. Because it's a new Eon card, they've actually changed some of the old ways of looking at things and come up with new words which are more appropriate. So the Adjustment card. So this one, literally, in this reading, for the two of us in our relation with each other, bearing in mind we live in different countries, but there is still a very strong love connection, what I would say is it's a path of adjusting. Me adjusting to who she is, she adjusting to who I am. And this does give me an opportunity to say a little bit more about the Ruin card as it's come up, because the Ruin has a particular quality, and it's perfect the way this is laid out for me. The cards are really making it easy for me. The fundamental quality of Ruin to be aware of is Ruin is short-lived. And when you work your way through the Tarot Wheel of the Year, which we have done, and you can look at the films that cover this subject on UT Shaman, Ruin becomes love. So Ten of Swords, when you move to the next part of the year, as you leave the final decade of Gemini and into the first decade of Cancer, you move out of Ruin into love. So you can see how a 3-card reading can become extended. And because you begin with just the 3 cards, you get a full understanding of what they are, and then afterwards you add something. It's not so overwhelming. There's time to take it in more. And this gives me an opportunity to talk about another really useful form of reading, which is called a family reading. I'm not going to lay this one out. It's really self-explanatory when you think about it. What you do is you look at the family, whichever family it is, and you draw a card for each member of the family, one at a time, and making sure, of course, you draw one for yourself. And then what you can do is, just like with the relationship between me and this person concerned, we pulled a card for the relationship. You can do the same thing. So with the family, you just pull a card for each person, get a feeling and a flavour and understanding of each person, where they're coming from, and then give yourself a pause, and then your next stage of that reading would be to add a card about this person and that person, like me and my brother, me and my sister and my brother, me and my mum, me and my dad. You can get lots of really valuable information through that. And now just a word about one or two of the more dramatic cards in this deck. We'll look at this one first of all, turning it over. This is called the Death card. If you're ever going to do readings for other people, you need to have a whole decent dose of common sense applying to what you're doing. Because obviously, if a person was not fully understanding what they were doing, and someone was to draw a death card, then they could be very foolishly thinking, oh, well, this means a person's going to die, and of course it doesn't mean anything of the kind. What the death card means is it means death in its fullest sense of the word, which is letting go, endings, releasing, the end of something. That's what the death card means. So, of course, that could include the end of a physical lifetime, but there are so many other things it can mean too. And I'm using this particular card to show you just how rich and deep the symbolism is in these cards. So the symbol on the bottom right is Scorpio, and what we have is we have the different incarnations of Scorpio actually shown in this deck. We have the scorpion, we have the serpent, we have the fish, and we have the eagle. And these are all different representations of different aspects of Scorpio. The symbol for death has got his scythe, which he's digging his point of the scythe into the muddy river, and that enables literally souls to be released. And that's the idea of when you dig down into the muck, then that's when you can release issues which need to be dealt with. So in many ways this death card, apart from endings, is also about transformation, new possibilities. And the fact that he's got a helmet on, that's actually an Egyptian helmet, and that is an indication of his authority as a archetypal figure in terms of the human journey. So when it comes to reading the tarot, especially for other people, it's very important if a card comes up that's particularly strong, like a death card. The other card that comes up for people is the devil. And when you see that card comes up, what you realise is actually that card is all to do with a great deal of power and a great deal of strength. And what the person is being advised to do is to make sure that they use that wisely. There are a lot of other tarot decks out, and any deck since about the 1970s, I would actually not bother with it. I would give them a wide berth. The reason being that only a fraction of the amount of time and energy has been put into them than was put into this particular deck, which literally had a whole number of years to be in its gestation phase. And the card I showed you earlier, the adjustment card, that was actually done a total of 8 times before both people who were making it were satisfied with it. So the fact that it's a new age deck is very much in its favour. The fact that so much time and effort that went into it, to me, is also in its favour. So if you're ever interested in finding out more, do go to the website. I do detailed trainings on the tarot, and I also offer sole purpose reading, and I make use of both the tarot and the shamanism to do that. And I will now go ahead and make my next film for the Tarot Wheel of the Year. Thank you very much. Bye for now.